Today we have a preview that harkens back to the early days of
That's
MVM.
true.
This is the Clans of Caledonia expansion called Industria. It has a number of modules and one that really feels like the meat of the
Sure.
expansion. But if you're interested in learning about Clans of Caledonia, how it plays, and all those things, go back and check out that ancient video of ours
One of our
here on the channel.
early
It is
videos.
probably from 2017,
Yeah,
I think. So go check that out, because today we're going to talk mostly about the new stuff and some of the tweaks that they've made, sort of quality of life stuff.
for sure. And you can see a lot of this is already kind of out here, so I won't bury the lead. There is this entire train board here that you're going to be drawn to. This is the Industria part of the expansion. This is the idea that time has moved on, industry has come, we've built these railroads, and you're going to be taking these trains around making deliveries. We'll talk about that more later, but first of all, we wanted to talk about just some of the quality of life and adjustments they've made for this game. One of them, I think, is very obvious, and it's ease of setup.
Yeah.
Part of which is because everything has a cool storage solution now.
Yeah, the storage solution, I mean, that always makes things a lot easier, but yeah, the storage solution comes along with sort of the bigger box that you put everything in.
Yeah.
If you remember the original box, which is actually, a little respect to the original box, a lot of game in a pretty small box. Slightly bigger box this time, but there's all these storage solutions. So getting it out to the table is a lot easier. Plus, they have a nice setup guide on some of the player aid type of cards that basically steps you through step by step exactly everything you need to do to get the game going.
Yeah, and right away, I want to address one of the biggest criticisms that I think that this game has ever had, and that is the export market. And if you remember in the game, a lot of what you're doing is trying to create resources in order to fulfill contracts. In the base game, that is a significant amount of your points, is completing these contracts to get some special goods and also to be the one that completes the most. Now, the expansion has introduced some new ways to score massive points, but that still does remain an important part. And they've introduced a new module that can be used, can be suggested to be.
Yeah, I would not use this.
And this is the export refill board right here, which is going to show you the next 8 contracts that are going to be coming over to the export board. This is huge because there was a lot of situations where you might be building towards a contract, somebody grabs it, and it's just random luck. You draw out of the bag and you know, when it refills from a bag. You don't know what's going to happen. But now you can actually look ahead and see, okay, well, if you took the one that was requiring a lot of meat, okay, well, you know what? In 3 more, it's going to come back around. So maybe I have to shift my plan a little bit, but you can start planning ahead for some of these future contracts. And I think that alone is huge.
Yeah, you can plan a little bit longer ahead. You can even kind of look around the table and go, oh, I'm going to stop fighting him for that one. I don't want any of the rest of these, so I'm going to start planning for the very next one. Now, with that said, when you select, it is one of these 3 in the first slot, unless you're one of the special clans that gives you greater access. But it's not necessarily always the very next one, right?
Right. Instead of just drawing random tiles out of a bag, which again, like for some people there's that excitement level.
Yeah.
You get to look. Anytime you would take contracts, you can take the first 3. And yes, this is just a reminder. They had a special power in the first, in the base game. It's changed a little bit, again, because you're drawing from this board instead whenever you would draw a random contract. So those things plus the setup card, I think, are really going to help what some players have found problems with in the game. And then also they've introduced some new modules. They've introduced some new variants for how to draft the clans. They've introduced a new variant for setting up this market board up here that gives you some dice to roll so that the products might come at more variable starting instead of all of them being in the center. They can be up or down. So you're going to have a little bit more of a dynamic start to your game.
Yeah, it's really interesting because while they've made setup easier to follow and easier to get going, they've also made it more robust if you want it to be. Like Ryan said, making that sort of thing variable. Another module they've added is the scoring tiles.
Yeah.
There's a number of different scoring tiles. We've got one out here. There's just yet another way to score points in the game.
Yeah, it's an in-game scoring token. And speaking of scoring tokens, of all the the scoring tokens that you put out, of course, there's new ones. I should mention there's new port tiles. There's definitely new clans. There's new of whatever you'd expect to have in the game. There's new bonuses that kind of talk about some of the things that the expansion is adding, and there's even new map tiles.
Yeah, the new map tiles have waterfalls, which is a whole new sort of terrain type that lets bodies of water start, not necessarily from another body of water. Like you recognize something like this feeding into a bigger body. Now you've got something like this waterfall right here, and the body of water starts right from it.
Yeah, and they're dynamic again, and a lot of this stuff that we've talked about so far, you can kind of mix and match with the base game as you want. They give you several different options on how to draft, including basic drafts and auction drafts if you want to bid victory points to get some of these clans. And again, there's 9 new clans.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think doubles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it doubles.
Clans.
I think there was 9 in the original, at least in the base box. I don't know if they'd ever done any promos or anything like that. But we just went through all 9 of these and really read the rules. And I remember even the original ones were like, oh, wow.
Well, yeah, every one of these clans is like, I can do what? I can break the game's rules?
And now they have 18 of them.
It's crazy.
I have Clan McFarlane here. This one lets you, if you're familiar with the game, you have to do some upgrades to your shipping in order to sort of navigate, no pun intended, the water lanes in the water. This guy can actually build adjacent as long as he's along these like little rivers, which, everyone else basically has to upgrade to go across a river. You're never able to like build along a river like that. This guy's able to do that. Not only that, but you can also get bonuses from neighbors, not just when you're adjacent to them, but if they're somewhere along the river
as well,
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, the one that I picked to talk about, we just picked our 2 favorites because we haven't played all of these. Clan McPherson is sheep breeders or animal breeders. When you have animals next to each other, if you have 2 animals next to each other, they will breed, and you'll take a second animal and place it on the same tile, which, again, in the base game, you could never have 2 things on the same tile, but the different modules and expansion content gives you a lot of ways, actually, to place things in the same tile as something else, which is interesting as well.
Yeah, and the last module, if you will, before we get to the real expansion-y one, is the farmer's market. The farmer's market comes with a few things. One, this little pass tile that gives you different amounts for passing, but more importantly, these little farmer's market tiles that everyone's going to place at the beginning of the game. It's effectively, this is the best way I can think of to put it, it creates a automatic neighbor so that if anyone builds next to it or places a unit next to it, you're able to do an immediate trade like you would normally do with a neighbor, but it's limited to 2 specific goods. For instance, this one is milk and whiskey, but all of the tiles are different.
Yeah, and when you trade with the farmer's market, you trade at a higher value than kind of like, with the neighboring bonus. And it kind of reminds you on there, and it's printed in a few places to remind you how that trade works. It gives you something kind of maybe a little bit faster setup. It gives you a way to earn some money early. You get to place those, and of course, you're going to want to place them close by where you want to place your starting workers because you want to kind of build your settlements near it. Because, it kind of gives you a guide too. Like if you are dealt one, and these are random, and you have one that wants wool, then it's like, okay, well, maybe I should just start producing sheep. I should start making wool early. It does give you a little bit of guidance, I think, right out of the gate.
With that said, if you're playing a higher player count game, anyone can use them. Yeah. So it's not yours specifically. So it's an interesting sort of thing. Like Ryan said, I think it kind of gets things going a little bit faster.
Yeah. Now, all of that, everything we've described up to this point can be used in the base game. So if you're teaching the game to new players, I would still use all this stuff. And even the new clans, none of the new clans really use the train board.
Yeah.
So you can use all of these clans with the base game as well. So all that content. But I think a lot of people are here to find out what the
Industria is all about, and it is the train board. This train board out here, this is what I was saying earlier, definitely feels like more of an expansion to the game than the other modules.
Yeah, and it gives you a new action that you can do, and that is to deliver goods out here on this board. Now, at first glance, it kind of just looks like you're seeing all these train tracks flying around.
Which you are.
You are, but they're all connected to these different cities, and each one of these cities is going to have some kind of demand token that it potentially shares with the neighbor city and some kind of bonus tile. So on your turn, as a new action you can take, you can deliver with one of your trains. Now in a 2-player game, David and I have 2 trains on the board. Generally speaking, you're only going to have one. But you're moving this train around up to 2 spaces away to another city and then delivering goods. So this is another thing that you can use your goods for besides selling them, besides filling the export contracts. You can come and deliver them. And delivering them is really beneficial for 2 reasons. First of all, you get this demand delivery tile here. For fulfilling the demand, you get this bonus. And some of these bonuses are quite extensive.
Well, yeah, not only that, they're also just very appealing. I mean, there's one here for 40 coin.
Yeah, well, you got it, but this one comes with a cost of 2 whiskey.
Yes.
So you're spending stuff. So these are incredibly interesting bonuses. And again, you know, the demand here is shifting because you've got these demand tiles that are out on the board, and you've kind of got a market that shows you what the new demand tiles are going to be. Now, you can only do this once per round. We have our trains laying down so you can see them, but in a basic game, they'd be standing up. Once they've delivered for the round, they go face down, and they cannot be used to deliver again that whole round. Yeah. So you're not just doing this willy-nilly. You're doing it a few times in the game.
And it takes some planning for sure, because you can't even take that action unless you're able to deliver.
Yeah.
So you can't like take this action to try to better position your trains so you're closer to where you want to deliver.
Right.
You need to operate with some of the things that are somewhat close to your trains or your train in mind in order to do that. And I think it's interesting too, those demand tiles, it's not exactly like the economy that works in the game, but it kind of is reminiscent of that, you're basically reminding players this is a game about a dynamic economy of like, sometimes you want to trade things, sometimes people don't want
Right, and some of these delivery contracts out here might get way more appealing to you if the price in the market drops.
Yeah.
Like if you were planning on selling your milk to the market for 8, now it's 3, you're like, well, okay, there's no contracts that need milk, but there's a delivery that needs milk. So let's just get the wool, make that delivery, and get these bonuses. In addition, every time you deliver, you're going to take one of your milestones off of this little section over here. And again, we have a 2-player game set up. These milestones do 2 things. For one, it tracks the number of deliveries you've made. If you make 5 deliveries in a game, you get 20 points, which is not nothing.
It is not nothing.
Plus, you're getting all the benefits just for doing those as you do them. These can be placed out on the board next to these bigger milestone tiles to score some points. But again, only if you've already achieved what's on the tile. And some of these are very difficult. Like have 7 upgrades, have delivered contracts that require 5 different goods.
Yeah, no one's doing them early in the game for sure. And you can put those out there, like Ryan said, not only to get points, but also once you've placed for here, for example, you've unlocked these tracks so that you can have access to this city right here.
I can now deliver down to this city and fulfill this bonus and get these 2 extra points. After you've done 5 total deliveries, you get to put out your little train station. And this is a cool kind of thing that ties it together.
Yeah.
Once you've unlocked your train station, you can place it out here on the board where your opponent has a unit or any kind of building. Now, that wouldn't be legal. It has to be within your reach or your range or whatever, but it gives you just another building to put out to increase your total number of settlements, which is, I think, another little unique bonus that encourages you to want to deliver 5 times.
Yeah, it is a really interesting connection, sort of literally tying this back over to this board. But those are really all of the things that are going on here. At its heart, it is still Clans of Caledonia for sure. And I do think this feels, like we said several times now, this feels like the expansion.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, there's a lot of little modules here that you can use. And I can't even imagine any of those modules you don't want to use.
No, this export contract refill, I mean that...
Well, and this scoring tile,
and the scoring tile,
the farmer's
cool
market,
thing.
These are all very easy things to implement. And honestly, I don't even think the train board is terribly difficult. However, it does add more options that you can do on your turn.
And it adds some visual complexity for sure. If you're sitting down, you're like, this looks like a lot. But really, it's a lot less, maybe even now that I've explained it, it's a lot less to try to parse than it looks like when you're first sitting down at the table. And I like that it gives you now, you have to make that choice of like, do I want the export contract or do I want to focus on deliveries? I think the key to winning would be really to balance and figure out when it's beneficial to do one or the other.
Yeah, you're going to want to look because this just, I think, gives you more options. Like you said earlier, when the market's tanked, you just have somewhere else to go now.
Sure.
And you're always going to want to look, okay, here. What's my best situation right now? Is Ryan going after this? Maybe I'll just go after something here first. But that's everything going on in Clans of Caledonia, Industria. If you have any questions at all, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.